Well, that's my opening. Well, got nothing better than that. Welcome back to another episode of Charge On. Not a great one, Knights fans. This is basically going to be I don't know how long this episode is going to be, but it's going to be a rant. That's it. It's just going to be a long, painful rant. We appreciate you coming back and supporting the show, as always. I have Mr. Rob Husby with me. Nick is not on the pod. He actually came to the game, has to drive back to Tampa. He is so upset that he couldn't be on the pod this evening. We were recording this at midnight. We just got back from the game, composed our thoughts, and now we are jumping on. So, Rob, I know this is a terrible question to ask, but how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, Sean, after watching that team crap it up on the football field tonight. I feel bad for Nick that he had to attend that entire game and then drive like 2.5 hours back to Tampa tonight. Like, Godspeed, my friend.
Yeah, not the game to come to. I
No.
mean, not the game to attend tonight.
Nope.
So let's just get into it. Like I said, Knights fans, this is a rant. This game, because last season was very hard. I think most of us can agree watching the Knights last year was like pulling your hair out and getting punched in the face all at the same time. Tonight felt like that, but in a way that somehow was worse. Almost like you have a knife to your stomach, you're getting your hair pulled out, your teeth are getting pulled out by a dentist, and you're also getting punched in the face, but your nose is getting broken at the same time. So it's even worse. That's how tonight felt. Rob, how did it feel for you? Was that a good explanation? Did I explain that well?
I mean, I think you could have added the kick in the nuts part, but I think all that describes it. I mean, I would say one word to describe it: exhausting. That's the way to. I mean, the weather was not horrible out. For a Florida evening game, it was a little humid, but I mean, we were sweaty, we're tired, but I mean, I think that game just wore us out mentally. That was tough to watch. And
here's the thing: the beginning of the game, it was hype, and we knew it was going to be hype. We knew that there was so much hype surrounding this game. We're like, listen, we're at home. We talked about it on the pod, right? Louisville got their butt kicked last week. They put up 7 points. We're thinking, we've got a team this year, man. Like, we're going to wipe the floor with these people. And, you start the game. Defense gives up 7 points right off the bat. And we're like, wow, okay. Defense, look, you were playing SC State, and we kept saying, you're playing SC State, you're playing SC State. We're like, oh, okay, now you're playing a real team. And first possession, Louisville goes down, scores a touchdown on you. Okay. Offense answers right back. No problems in the drive. You were getting first downs. You had a couple third downs that you got done. You scored a touchdown with Isaiah Bowser, 7-7. You're like, okay, cool. I think they punted the next time. Both teams punted. And then after they came back, defense played good those next 2 possessions. UCF came back, put up another touchdown drive. Now, that was in the second quarter. It was 7-7 to end the first. And obviously, Louisville had the missed field goal, so that helped. And then UCF answered with a touchdown. They ran the only 2 touchdowns of the night came from the Wildcat formation with Isaiah Bowser running it into the end zone. Those were the only 2 touchdowns of your night. There are so many problems. And not like, oh, simple things that we can fix. And, oh, this is simple. No. There are so many things that we're watching and we're like, wow. Number one, this team is undisciplined. Undisciplined to the nth degree. I mean, how many players, Rob, how many players from this football team got charged with unnecessary roughness or something to that effect after the play for a free 15 yards? I mean, it was at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think we were counting after the game. It was like 4 or 5, wasn't it? It was something stupid like that.
And I get, and people, if you want to put in the comments, like I know a couple of them, like Braden Jennings, he had one. Ricky Barber, he had one.
Jean-Baptiste had one after
it got sick.
First
I
down,
mean, after a while, you just literally get like, okay, yep, we pushed a guy down. We did that. It's like, at some point, it's sickening.
Mm-hmm.
This team is so undisciplined, and so, I get it. You can have fun, and you can enjoy yourself playing and enjoying the game and not be this undisciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Penalties. Nick brought it up last week. It was 10 penalties for 85 yards. Nick said, have to clean that up. If you're going to be a good football team in college football and you go to a big bowl game or win your conference, those type of penalties are not going to fly. And it was against SC State. Now, granted, it was the first week, so we're like, okay. 11 penalties for 111 yards. A full football field in penalties on the UCF side. And pretty much all of them, like, listen, you could give or take a couple and guess what? 2 of those penalties wiped down 14 points that you had. 14 points that came off the board because of some stupid penalty that you committed.
Yep.
So, what are your thoughts on the penalties tonight? What are your thoughts on these penalties?
We've seen this before. We've seen this story before. This was a problem under Heupel, was the undisciplined team. We always talked about that. In Heupel's last season, it was the undiscipline of the team and how immature some of them could be sometimes and how those penalties would cost them. And we saw that tonight. I think definitely, I mean, while the unnecessary roughness calls hurt, I think you're looking at the more offensive side of the ball and how undisciplined the offensive line was. I mean, like you just said,
we haven't
2
even
touchdowns costed. Direct touchdowns costed because of holding penalties. Like, that's so coachable and so fixable. I mean, you have to do something about that. That is something that cannot wait halfway through the season. They need to fix that next week.
And let's get something straight. The Knights had ample opportunities to win this game.
Oh,
they had at least 4. You
drive after drive. The defense bailed them out almost every drive.
And that's the thing. And I know a lot of Knights fans will listen. The game I watched, and Knights fans, you could say, oh, the defense. And I was mentioning it to Rob after the game because, yes, the game I was watching, the defense was keeping this game. They were keeping the Knights in it. There's no other way to describe it. They were keeping Louisville away for a majority of the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, the score was 7-14 for almost
a half,
at least 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like now Louisville still had 427 yards of total offense. Like, they still moved the ball. 226 yards rushing. So, obviously, I think the takeaway from the defense tonight is that is the brightest part of this team right now, is the defense. Now, not saying there's not stuff to work on. I mean, again, I think all of the unnecessary roughness penalties came from the defense.
Yes.
Just stupid, idiotic plays that you didn't need that. Yes, that's coachable where you can say, like, guys, like, we need to be more disciplined. Like, we can't, if you count how many unnecessary roughnesses, those were, that's 60 yards? That's almost, that's over half of your penalty yards from the game was in unnecessary roughness. So, yes, that's coachable. And the defense did keep you in this game, ultimately. Yes. Yeah. Stuff to work on. So, that's all I need to say about the defense. I think they played as good as you can. 20 points. I mean, yes, they only scored 7 last week, but
again, I think it's SC State though.
No, I was saying against Syracuse.
Oh, against Syracuse. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're talking about from
7 points against Syracuse.
Well, and I think also too. I mean, it's a vast improvement over last season. I mean, UCF scored 35 points last season, and they still lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so while they put up the numbers rushing and throwing, like Cunningham was. Especially the first half, he was running over the defense a lot. I mean, there was, I forget if it was in the end of the third quarter. This game kind of blended in. The end of the third quarter or the start of the fourth, on one of Louisville's drive, Cunningham threw like a 25 or 30-yard pass, and it was like, oh, here we go. And UCF's defense stopped him on the 10 and forced him to a field goal. Like, that's very, very impressive.
No, it is. And that's why brightest spot of the night was the defense, in my opinion. Again,
Bend, don't break.
Bend, don't break.
Bend, don't break.
You can clean up some of the stuff, but ultimately, I think that's the brightest spot of this team right now.
I agree.
Let's go into the special teams before we go into offense, because the offense is going to take a while.
There's nothing special about the special teams. That I will say.
And listen, I want to make it very clear, and I understand these are just college students, right? They're just college kids, and you don't want to go in on them so hard, because they are, at the end of the day, they are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And I understand that, and I 100% get it. But you have to call it like it is. And I think the problem that a lot of fans have had is Daniel Obarski is just not – he's lost his touch. I mean, like, you could see it. It's so visible. And I talked with Rob. We were sitting next to each other during the game. Obarski misses the field goal, right? Misses the field goal. And I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, if he misses this, then it is 100% fact he has lost all confidence in himself.
Yeah.
And am I going to sit here and say UCF fans are not to blame? No. I think, yes, the reason that he probably is in his head so much is because UCF fans, like me, razz on him every single week and say, oh, we're going for a field goal. Here comes Obarski. He's probably going to shank it. So, no, I do think UCF fans play all the part in the way that he is performing.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, as a college kicker and as a kicker in general, your job is to come out and make your field goals and make your extra points. That is your job. You shouldn't be listening to the fans. You shouldn't be caring what they think. You should be focused on your job. And ultimately, it didn't matter because the game was 20-14. But at one point in time, it was 7-14. If you make that a field goal, it's 17-7, and it's a 2-score game, and instead of, us being down, it might be tied, and then, your offense has a little bit more wiggle room to like try to figure something out. I think all UCF fans have gotten to the point like, listen, he has made some good kicks in the past, but he has also missed some very big kicks in his career that have cost UCF some big losses. It's not his fault that we lost the game tonight. Far from it. If the game was 20-17, I think I'd be going much harder on the missed kick.
Yeah.
But I think we have decided, and I think we're all just so tired of the missed field goals, because those are points on the board that we're not getting.
Right. And the number one thing you don't want to worry about with a kicker is the one thing you don't want to think about them is when they get on the field. Like, if it's an automatic, like, oh, hope he makes it. Oh, hope he doesn't miss. Oh, here comes a miss. I mean, that's the number one thing you don't want. That just shows you have no confidence in your kicker.
No, and I was sitting right next to you, and we're watching him practice. So we're sitting on the end. And listen, again, I feel bad, but I also don't. I mean, it's more on the coaching staff you want to put all this confidence in your kicker. You can see him in practice. He was practicing at halftime. This man was missing terribly, like not even close. Like, he was shanking them so far that you're like, wow. And you could see, like, he picked up the thing that was holding the ball, that was keeping the ball for him, and he just chucked it. Like, you could see on his face, he's just so done because he's struggling big time. Like, yeah, he made his extra points, and he hasn't really had a problem with making the extra points. The field goals, though, there's something in his head. There's something not right. I will say, special team-wise, on the punt returns and kickoffs, better tonight. A lot of that stuff got cleaned up from last week. A lot of the flags in the punt return game and stuff like that were not happening tonight. So I guess positive. There you go.
Yeah,
there's the positive.
Instead of flags on the punt return, it was flags on the offense.
Yeah. So, yeah, Obarski, I think, again, it's almost like a rinse and repeat at this point.
Yeah.
I just think we need to find somebody else. And
yeah, at what point do you turn to Colton Boomer? I mean, I don't know if he's still hurt, but I know he got hurt in camp. But we saw him out there tonight. Like, I don't know at what point we say, okay, maybe we need to, rethink this. Maybe we should give him a shot. I mean, I just don't know how long you experiment with Obarski. I don't know.
Here's the thing, and I was telling you, I think this is I told you, I think at halftime, I think this is the last game we see him maybe starting. I might renege on that now because there's so many other problems with this team that I think kicker might be the last thing.
He's not even a general concern.
No. So let's go offense because I was fuming, and I think many Knights fans were watching this game. I remember, so Nick texted after the first drive against SC State and said, "Oh, shades of Mackenzie Milton." And I said, when you throw out Mackenzie Milton's name, it better be like, that's an all-time great. Probably, if we're being honest, the best UCF player to ever walk through those doors. I mean, that's my personal opinion. Obviously, he's not in the NFL, but I think he's done more for the program than anybody. And that's saying a lot since Blake Bortles and Dante Culpepper were here. Again, just so basic play calling that it's almost frustrating where, again, I want to pull my hair out and bang my head up against a wall. And I think Gus, with the problem with Heupel was, again, it was almost like run, punt. Run, punt, run, lateral, punt. And it's like, no offense to Gus, but that's what it looked like tonight. The basic play calls of run up the middle, quarterback design run, lateral off to the side, and hope that a wide receiver. It's like, we get it. You have skill position. You have great skill position players. You need to use them. Stop. Like, we all said, the reason JRP is the quarterback is because he can do things Mikey Keene can't. Mikey Keene can throw the ball better, but he can't run as good as JRP. You're seeing the problem with this offense right now is now you're relying too heavily, which is what we talked about before week 1. Is it going to come to a point where you rely so heavily on the run that the passing becomes non-existent and it hurts the team in the long run? You saw that happen tonight. John Rice Plumlee, 16 of 34, 131 yards, 1 interception, 3.9 yards per pass. For a UCF offense that, for its history, has been known to just light it up passing the football. 3.9 yards per pass. That was John Rice Plumlee. 5-year anniversary today. When we got home, my girlfriend, she showed me that. And I'm like, oh, it was 5-year anniversary. It has nothing to do with the game, but it just sucks he had that game on his anniversary. I feel bad for him. I feel bad that I hope this didn't taint the day. I mean, I'm pretty sure it must have, but man, you get so much hype. I think the frustrating thing is, again, you put so much hype into one game, and then you realize, like, listen, it's college football, and the next game, it could change like that. Yeah, he had 17 carries for 83 yards, but I think there was every single time he ran, it was almost like it was a reliance. Like, he was not confident in throwing the football tonight. Or,
it was a bailout.
Yeah. It's like, oh, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, listen, you ran for this much in the SEC. No offense to John Rice Plumlee, and he's fast. And I don't want to discredit and say, like, 17 for 83 is not bad. I mean, like, it's not. It wasn't like he was going and picking up first downs every play. I mean, it was 2nd and 6s, and then we're getting put in 3rd and 4s, and it's like you hope that, okay, we're going to start making some passes and making some throws, and when you only complete 16 balls tonight, as a wide receiver, Rob, I bet that is extremely frustrating, and that was my fear, and that was my fear before. It's like you're getting some great skill position players. And I know it's week 2, and we'll talk about positives and what we can build on moving, like, in a second. But skill position, if I'm a skill position player like a wide receiver, and I'm not getting the ball because we're running with the quarterback every single play, when do you kind of step up and be like, what are we, like, I want the ball. I mean, I want to prove myself. When does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we were even talking about it at one point at the game tonight I think we heard, like, Kamari Gamble's name, like, twice at one point. I think I remember seeing him in the catch-up ball in the 3rd quarter, and he had a big catch, and it was like, wow, like, haven't heard his name in a while. Even Ryan O'Keefe, Ryan O'Keefe's supposed to be your number 1 option, and I think he had, like, 2 screenplays that I remember, and he really wasn't utilized much at all. Like, I just don't know what they're doing, and I mean, I don't think they're utilizing John Rice Plumlee's strengths as much. For a guy that, has the accuracy has been in question, I think why is he not throwing up the middle as much? There was almost no throws up the middle tonight. Where was that?
They ran it up the middle.
Yeah,
They ran
up the middle, no throws
a ton. Nope.
They completely abandoned the deep ball. I mean, there was one drive in, I think it was the second quarter, where UCF had 2 pass interference calls from throwing the deep ball because Louisville was on their toes. Their cornerbacks were playing way too much up on them. They were getting physical, and it forced them into 2 bad penalty pass interference calls.
Yep.
So what is the response to that? Well, let's run more screen plays. Let's throw more laterals. Let's run the ball more. Where's the deep ball? Where's the pressure being put on the cornerbacks for Louisville that clearly are shaken up? There's no RPOs, no throws up the middle. I mean, this is a offense that absolutely, because of the speed of Ryan O'Keefe and Javon Baker and a lot of these guys, I mean, they would heavily benefit from RPOs and quick releases from John Rice Plumlee. But we didn't see any of that. I mean,
Javon Baker had a good game. I mean,
he did.
He was the best receiver on the field. Yeah, he had 5 recs for 84 yards.
Yeah, no.
But to your point though, Ryan O'Keefe 4 receptions for 8 yards, and like you said, it was the lateral. They used him in laterals.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, you're using a guy with that much speed. Where are the slant plays? Where are the RPOs? Where's the throws up the middle when he can just take off and open coverage? Like where is that? There's none of that.
No. And that's the thing. If you look at the receptions, it's more eye-opening than anything, because you can be like, oh, like, what were the pass plays? I mean, he completed 16 balls, right? So where did the yards come from? So if you look at it, there was 131 yards total. 84 of them came from Javon Baker. So Alec Holler had 1 reception for 0 yards. Xavier Townsend had 3 receptions for 7 yards. Kamori Gamble, 1 reception for 7 yards. Ryan O'Keefe, 4 receptions for 8 yards. And then Johnny Richardson, 2 receptions for 25 yards.
Yeah, and there was a lot of missed passes too. I mean, Holler in general, Holler in specific. I mean, Holler in specific. There was one play where John Rice threw pretty low, and Holler was wide open.
Yep.
Would have hit him. Probably would have hit the end zone.
Yep.
There was another play at the end of the third or the beginning of the fourth. Again, this all blends in because it was such a bad game. But has Alec Holler wide open on 3rd down, overthrows him.
Yeah.
Like just completely missing open plays.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Too many lateral plays to try to get I get it. You need to get your receivers in open space, but so much needs to go right. You need to block right. Like, I mean, and yeah, that's been UCF's identity is, like throwing those laterals and taking off. It's just not looking like that is what this UCF team is like. Again, I might be wrong. In a couple weeks, they can come out and they can throw those laterals and it'll be crazy. But like, you need to throw the ball down the field. Yeah. And it was so obvious tonight. Me and you were sitting there, we're like, they're going to start throwing the ball down the field because they just got 2 PIs in 2 seconds. Throw the ball. Yeah. And then they went right back to running the ball. So that was the number one thing. So offensive line.
What a mess.
This is what happens. And I think this is where the transfer portal, you can act, we get a good player. Great. You get good players. They need to mesh well. I mean, this offense just, and again, see how big of a difference 1 week in college football can change everything. We're thinking, we blast SC State 56-10, and we put up 14 against a team that gave up 31 to Syracuse and only put up 7 points against Syracuse.
Yep.
1 week. Offensive line couldn't create gaps for running lanes. I mean, how many runs up the middle did we do where there was just,
nothing there.
2-3 yards?
Yeah, nothing there.
Sacks behind the line. I felt like, and this is the thing, I criticize John Rice Plumlee because he deserves the criticism. He had a bad game. He did not play well. But I am going to give a lot of the blame on his offensive line. There were sometimes he had no protection.
Yeah, the pass protection was horrible tonight.
Absolutely abysmal. And now, again, it could be play call by design. If you're going lateral, they get through the pocket and, you throw it quick. But the plays were breaking down. Running lanes weren't there. Give credit to Louisville. I mean, they stopped the run from there was not a huge run. I mean, guess what? In the big runs and the big plays, got called back for flags. Yeah. So it works hand in hand. I mean, UCF had the game in the palm of their hand. They had the reason for the loss is the 11 penalties. Yeah. You take those penalties away, but that's football. You take the penalties away, you beat them by 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, you're not disciplined, especially on the offensive line. They need work, and when you try to bundle up a bunch of transfer guys and try to make them work well, you would think that would work. But it is showing this offensive line is struggling outright. Like, they are struggling.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you have returning guys, too, like Matt Lee, Lokahi Paoli, who were on lists last year, who actually were pretty good last year, and this year, just the whole unit does not look good. And again, it's not just the pass protection. If it was one aspect of the offensive line tonight that was fixable, it was, if it was something that was, I think what I'm trying to say is, if it was something that was singular, it'd be a lot more fixable. But it was a bunch of things mixed together that made this offensive line completely terrible. Not just the poor pass protection and run protection, not just, allowing a collapsing pocket for John Rice and not really giving him a lot of time to throw, especially because he doesn't have great quarterback vision. He's not really quick-witted like that. He needs a little bit more time to throw and be accurate. And then on top of that, you add very undisciplined penalties. I mean, you have a recipe for disaster. And it led to a very predictable offense. I think that's the way to describe the offense tonight. Predictable, beatable. Yeah. And I think the offensive line, again, direct 2 holding penalties costed them direct touchdowns. I mean, that Johnny Richardson play, like, explosive, brought them right back into the game. And what happens? Gets called right back because of holding. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare.
That's what the title of this episode is called. It's called A Nightmare. Mm-hmm. Straight up nightmare.
Friday night nightmare.
Friday night nightmare. Because they didn't score points for 2.5 quarters.
Nope.
That is not UCF brand of football, and it's disappointing to watch.
Right.
I mean,
and going back to last year, I mean, they were able to put up 35 points and still lost, but like
that was also, and that's the thing though, that was also, I like to talk bad about him, but that was Dylan Gabriel. Like that was when he was running the offense, and as soon as Mikey Keene came in, obviously, redshirt freshman coming in, like true freshman, gets thrust in there. The offense took a dip, but see, I don't even want to say the offense was better. It maybe towards the end of the year, like against Florida, it was good, but like there were growing pains. I mean, we knew the USF game. I mean, the USF game was abysmal. They put up 14? It was 14-10 or something. Yep. Like I don't even. So it just looked like the same old offense, and that's where I don't want to create the narratives like, oh, do we have to start thinking it's Gus? Do we have to? I don't want to start saying that. It's game 2. But what I am saying is these are not like, oh, we can go fix these in practice in 1 week. This is like you had a month to prepare, and you would think that you would have less than 11 penalties for 111 yards. And you would think, maybe we should throw the ball a little bit more down the field when our offense has been known to do that. Unless they literally just don't trust John Rice to throw the ball down the field that much. Yeah. And they just want to run the ball down people's throats.
Well, I mean,
4 for 16 on third down. That's also 4 for 16 on third down. That loses you the game too. Now, Louisville was much better. They were 4 for 14. But that says a lot.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it goes back to Heupel too. Like, we've seen this before. Like, again, Heupel's last season, I'm pretty sure it was Heupel's last season. What was the first 2 games of the season? The talk of UCF's games, first 2 games was, how do we diminish the penalties? How do we stop these penalties? The offensive line is taking so many penalties, and we're running into the same problem. Granted, it was a huge problem against SC State. It's a huge problem against Louisville. So, I mean, that needs to be fixed. Again, it's not going to be fixed in a practice, but it's got to be fixed over the next few games.
No, yeah. We're going to say one more negative thing, and then we can talk about the positives moving forward. And tonight, Sam, I told you this is a rant. I mean, I'm hurting. I'm tired. I am annoyed. I'm frustrated. It's a lot. I mean, it's week 2, and again, there's a hope. There is hope at the end of the tunnel, but it's also just like these are winnable games that you should win.
They should have won tonight.
They should have won. By a lot.
Yeah, I mean, how many drives did the defense bail? Again, it comes back to the defense bailing them out a lot of times. Again, allowed a lot of numbers on the field, but at the same time, held them to 20 points. You held, and the talk of the town is Malik Cunningham and how they can put up points and how he can run all over you. They kind of stopped him after the first quarter. I mean, yeah, he was still running. No,
they figured it out. They figured it out pretty much.
Yeah, they figured it out. They were starting to get to him. They were starting to get to the run game. They were starting to take him, forcing him into bad throws. And they didn't capitalize on it.
Ultimately, it came down to they scored 13 points in the second half, and we scored 0.
Yep.
I mean, that's it. They scored 13 points in the second half, and we
how many football games, college or professional, have you ever seen end 14-7? Not many.
Not many.
You don't win many games by 7 points, putting up only 2 touchdowns. I said they were going to win by 2 scores. I guess what I meant to say was they only scored 2 touchdowns.
Only scored 2 touchdowns. We won't get into recruiting talk. I think that's my main concern is you have big-time recruits finally coming here, and a lot of them were here tonight. And yeah, you could see the atmosphere all you want. But if I'm a wide receiver, if I'm a 4-star wide receiver and I'm seeing the way that offense is run, sorry, and no offense, I'm a UCF fan, I'm not coming to UCF. And that's just a fact. I mean, right now with the way the offense is run, I wouldn't come to UCF. At home, seeing how the receivers are used, I mean, they're not used in a way that a number 1 receiver can get his touches. I mean, if you're Javon Baker.
Did we hear Kobe Hudson's name once tonight?
No, and that's what I'm also saying. Like, Kobe Hudson, like, it's like a bunch of these guys, I'm like, where are they? We're not using any of them.
Mm-mm.
Ryan O'Keefe had 8 yards tonight. Are you kidding me? Like,
and that's your number 1.
That is your number 1 receiver. We didn't try to hit a deep ball, like, if we, like, frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Last negative thing, and then we're going to try to look at some positives. John Rice Plumlee's pocket presence is the one thing that I wrote. Listen, people want to compare him to McKenzie. Let's compare him. I'm going to continue comparing this man to McKenzie because that's what everybody seemed like they wanted to do for 1 week in Central Florida. No offense, he's not Mackenzie Milton, and nobody probably is ever going to be. So let's just look. He's John Rice Plumlee of the 2022 UCF Knights football team. John Rice has a problem in the pocket where, on a lot of plays, he doesn't understand the right thing to do in that moment. So, like, in certain moments, he runs when he shouldn't. And then in certain moments, he passes when there are clear running lanes that he can run. So what do you think, Rob, that comes down to just not playing the position and still not kind of having a grasp on that pocket presence and having that instinct yet? But it's like you've had a month, or you've had more than a month to kind of prepare and kind of understand that. I know they didn't go live, but you've been playing the position for that long. It's like, don't you think as a running quarterback, you would know when a lane opens up, and you would also know there's no lane here. Let me find an open receiver.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so, but I also think there's just a lot more pressure on you as a quarterback. I mean, I think, again, we talk about the QB awareness. I don't think he's quick with his QB awareness. He seems very slow to catch open receivers, and by the time he catches them, I mean, we saw that in the fourth quarter as well, where he has a guy open for, maybe a second and a half, and if he releases that ball at the right time, it's in.
Yeah.
And he releases it a second too late, 2 seconds too late, and that opportunity's gone and gets knocked away. So I just don't think he has fast enough vision. And that was always the knock on him, was the accuracy and his just lack of general QB awareness. I mean, you take it all the way to the end of the game. What was it, a 4th and 5 or fourth? Yeah, it was a 4th and 5 for UCF. John Rice Plumlee could have ran it in, elects to throws it behind Xavier Townsend, game over.
Game over.
I mean, that's the story of the game. He has guys, he's trying to hit guys and he's throwing off, and then he has opportunities to run and he doesn't take it. He could have ran it in and he doesn't. He elects to throw and he misses. So, I mean, that's the difference in the game is, like you said, he needs to better understand his lanes. He needs to better understand when to throw and when to bail himself out and run, and I just don't think he has that right now. And, maybe he'll pick it up, maybe he won't, but I think that's going to decide ultimately between him being the starter of this team or him getting benched for Mikey Keene.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, and I don't even want to get into that tonight. We could talk about that.
Yeah, that's a different discussion for a different day.
So, yeah, we could talk about it at the preview for FAU next week. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And I've been saying that all night tonight. It is what it is. We need to figure out a way to bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Knights fans, here's the positive, right? It's a non-conference game. So we could call it like it is. We have no business right now beating a Cincinnati, Houston, SMU right now. We're not. We're not there. I think this team is still insanely talented. They have so many talented guys. They just need to figure out how to work together and mesh together. John Rice Plumlee, I still think is the quarterback. I think they still can do things with him they can't do with Mikey. Problem is you've got to figure out what this offense is. I mean, what is the offense? If you're a power rushing team and that's what you want to do, your offensive line has to become that type of offensive line. I think they're still the concern of, are we a pass? We just need to figure out what this team is. Mm-hmm. It's an out-of-conference game. You could still win your conference. You could still go to the championship game. You could still get a New Year's Six bowl game, depending. There's just a lot to clean up, and there's a lot, and we'll be talking about it in the weeks to come. I mean, people are going to nitpick this team like crazy after this game. And listen, you're an uphill climb. You just lost to Louisville, a team that everybody was saying was trash after week 1. You're an uphill climb. Nobody's going to think about you. You are so far gone out of the rankings. So I take back everything I said last week about the rankings. I mean, yeah, maybe they saw exactly what they saw about UCF. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but there's a lot not to like about this team. But I think we need to look at the positives and think this defense can hold us in some of these games. And this offense just needs to figure out very quickly what this identity is. And as soon as they can figure out this identity, and maybe that is changing the quarterback. We have no idea, and I'm not suggesting changing. I still think we need John Rice Plumlee in there right now. But we need to figure this out quick, and it's not a quick turnaround. You got FAU. They have a dynamic offense. We'll talk about that next week, but that's my final thought. It's not a conference game. It sucks. It blows. It's week 2. I did say in my preview of the season, I thought a week 2 loss, even though I predicted a win last week. I said, I think we might lose to Louisville. I'm sorry if I'm the bad juju, but those are my final thoughts. Rob, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. I certainly don't think it's time to hit the panic button. We're in game 2. We expected UCF to lose at least one game. I'm sure they'll end up losing more than one, especially if they play like this again. I think Cincinnati, even if Cincinnati is not going to be as good this year, I think Cincinnati and SMU's games just became a lot more important and became a lot more challenging. But no, I think right now, listen, the goal was never to get in the playoff this year. It wasn't going to happen. I mean, after Cincinnati really got steamrolled by Georgia, it wasn't going to happen again. So I think for UCF, there's still a best case scenario out there. There's still a very good chance, maybe not very good, but there's still a good chance they can redeem this season and, finish with maybe 2-3 losses and still make it into the American Championship game. There's still a chance that they get, if not a New Year's Six bowl game, they get a halfway decent bowl game. That's something better than the Gasparilla Bowl, against a good opponent, even though UCF did play UF last year. I think there's still hope in this team. There's still faith in this team that, like you said, you I think said it best. They're still looking for their identity. There's a lot of new guys on the team, a lot of returning guys, but a lot of new guys on the team. And I think it's going to take time for all of them to mesh together. And I think it's up to Gus and his coaching staff to get the most out of this team. And I think that's really what it comes down to. There's clearly talent on this team. There's clearly a lot of individual talent. It's just getting them together to form a good team, maybe even a great team. And it's up to the coaching staff to tap into that and unleash that potential.
Well said. Well said. We can't get any lower. I mean, I shouldn't have said that because it could
you
get
just
worse.
jinxed it. You jinxed it. Now they're going to get blown out by FAU next week.
Don't say that. See, now you just put no. See, I have wood right here. I knocked on it. Oh, jeez.
Me too.
All right, not a fun nights.
No,
and I'm not going to sleep very well.
No.
But there is still hope.
Absolutely.
This team can turn it around. They've got the tools. They've got everything they need. But you got to call it like it is. I am not the type. And I told Rob, I'm going off on this pod. I'm not the type to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, let's look at the positives. No, it was pretty much all negative. This was not a good game. We sucked. That's the fact. We're going to move on.
Yep.
We have FAU next week. We are back to being underdogs. That's what it is. Yep. We can't be the big boy on campus anymore. We are back to being the underdogs. We'll go to the Big 12 next year and be underdogs again. But if we want to try to compete for this American title, we need to beat some of these teams. And that's all I'm going to say.
What they need to worry about is in-conference games.
Yep.
And you got to worry about what your record is in conference. Worry about getting to the American Championship if you can and salvaging that season. I mean, I think that's the most realistic thing.
And let's go try to beat Georgia Tech, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, listen, if you pick up some out-of-conference wins, absolutely.
Yep. All right, thank you for tuning in to Charge On. Sorry, Knights fans, if this helped your healing, if this helped ease the pain, then please subscribe. Follow us everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everything. iHeartRadio. Follow and subscribe to us on YouTube, both at our YouTube page and Believes. We post our videos on both of those YouTube pages, so whichever one you prefer, we appreciate it. And yeah, I appreciate all of you. I know this hurts. It's going to hurt pretty much all week, but we're going to get through it, and we're going to continue loving watching this team, and I still think there is some good in them. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode with an FAU preview and just going over. Nick will probably give his thoughts on this game, so get ready for more heartbreak for the week. I mean, that's all I can say. Definitely wasn't the cardiac nights tonight, but
gave me a cardiac.
Yeah, I think it was a different type of cardiac. It was more just pain.
Broke my heart.
Yeah. All right, Knights. Go Knights. Charge on. We'll see you guys next week.